Welcome back. President Biden traveling now to Saudi Arabia after spending several days in Israel. The president hitting on numerous priorities during his time there, but still many questions loom as he makes his way to Saudi Arabia. To discuss, let's welcome in former U.S. Ambassador to Israel during the Trump administration, David Friedman. Sir, welcome. Thanks so much for coming on today. In a speech this morning, President Biden called for two states for two peoples, the Israelis and Palestinians. He said this while visiting the West Bank. He did not take questions today, but he was asked on Thursday if he would recognize Jerusalem as the nation's capital. Let's listen to how he responded.
Your visit tomorrow is Jerusalem, and you won't be accompanied by an Israeli official. Does this represent a change in your administration's view regarding the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel? And if East Jerusalem is part of it? Thank you.
Answer your last question is no.
And then he went on to answer the other one. But Ambassador, what did you make of the president's visit and what was included in his itinerary?
Well, I think apart from the overall love fest, which is something every Israeli government will give to every American president because of the closeness of the two countries, if you just peel it back one layer, I think it was pretty insulting and humiliating for Israel. First of all, on the point you made, the initial point you made about Jerusalem, he would not visit the Western Wall. If you recall, back in May of 2017, Donald Trump was and remains the only sitting president to visit the Western Wall. The Western Wall is the iconic symbol of the state of Israel and the historic rights of the Jewish people that span some 4,000 years to be in the land of Israel. That was bad enough. Then he takes his beast, his big car, takes off the Israeli flag, drives to a section of East Jerusalem, and refuses to allow any Israeli representative to accompany him, even though the state of Israel has asserted its sovereignty over all of Jerusalem for more than 50 years. So, whatever he said, and I'm not sure I know what he said because it was highly confusing, but his actions were very clear. He denied Israeli sovereignty over parts of Jerusalem. I think every Israeli prime minister, right, left, or center, would find that offensive. The second thing was on Iran. And you heard, I think you had it at the top of this segment, the acting prime minister of Israel, Yair Lapid, who is not a hawk. He's a center-left politician. He begged America to present a credible threat of deterrence to Iran. And he said specifically, a credible threat of force. And you didn't hear any of that from the president. You didn't hear him articulate any red lines, any circumstances under which America would use force. And given the history of the Biden administration, whether it's in Afghanistan or Ukraine or China or elsewhere, I don't think anyone paying attention thinks that the United States right now offers a credible threat of force to Iran. So the two things I think Israel was looking for, one was some real teeth with regard to their battle against Iran. The other, just a basic recognition that the policies of President Trump on Jerusalem would continue. On those 2 points, they came up empty-handed.
He now heads to Saudi Arabia, traveling directly, actually, from Tel Aviv to Jeddah. What are your expectations for the second leg of the trip, considering he will be meeting, at least in the same room, with the Saudi Crown Prince?
Well, again, when he was asked that question in Israel, he said, I'm only going to Saudi Arabia because that's where the GCC is having its conference, the Gulf Cooperating Council. So he's beginning this visit with sort of a left-handed comment and an offensive comment, which, because he's boxed in with his prior comments about Saudi Arabia being a pariah state. Look, the Saudis will deliver some token gestures. They've already made their airspace now available, I think, to Israeli flights. But the Saudis are still very angry. They're deeply suspicious. They don't see, on the issues they care about, they don't see America being, again, a real threat with regard to Iran. And I think this is a huge missed opportunity. It's been one for the last year and a half because with the issues that are present in Saudi Arabia, and no one minimizes the importance of human rights, certainly I don't,
Right.
but Saudi Arabia has made significant progress over the last 5 years. I mean, it's not the same country it was 5 years ago, and we ought to be encouraging that, and I think Biden has done just the opposite. Right. So will Saudi Arabia agree to drill more oil? I don't know. I don't know why it even matters. If we wanted more oil drilling, we could have done it ourselves.
Sure.
And as Mike Pompeo says, could have gone to Midland, Texas and done this, didn't have to go to Saudi Arabia.
Would have saved him a trip. Former Ambassador David Friedman joining us this morning. We do appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much.